Welcome to the Godly Business Podcast, where we discuss sales fundamentals with godly principles. I'm your host, Anne Jean Pierre. Today's episode is brought to you by Better Sales Women, where entrepreneurs learn to master the sales conversation and 3x their income. To learn more, visit bettersaleswomen.com. Good morning. I hope you guys are having an amazing week so far and that you are blessed in your ventures. Today, I wanted to switch things up a little bit. This is more going to be an encouragement to those of us who may be feeling a little bit discouraged as the end of the first quarter is wrapping up. Today um, is the 21st of March, and things are pretty much, we're at the end of March. So that is wrapping up the first quarter. So for those of us who maybe have started the year with certain goals and certain things that we wanted to reach, and first quarter is wrapping up, and maybe you are not where you thought you would be, I wanted to speak to you and try to encourage you in this journey, because I know as a solopreneur it can be very, very difficult um to keep yourself um confidence, to keep yourself encouraged, because oftentimes you are alone. So I wanted to just give you a little bit of encouragement today. So I want to start with this verse found in Zechariah 4:10, which says, "Don't despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin." I'm going to read it again. "Do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin." So I know sometimes when starting a business or starting a venture or starting a project, the beginning can do one of two things. We can either be super excited to start the beginning or dread the beginning because we're not seeing the results yet, right? And our beginning can be different, right? Someone's beginning could take a year, and someone's beginning could take 3 months, right? So when I read this and it says, "Do not despise small beginnings," whatever that small beginnings look like for you, um, and in the beginning, it can be very, very hard, especially if you're just starting out and this is your first ever venture, your first ever business. It can be very hard to continue moving forward when you're not seeing what you would define as the result, right? You're not seeing the numbers that you're looking for. You're not seeing the money come in, right? You're not seeing um, the tangible, what you would consider to be the tangible results, and you feel discouraged. Well, in this verse, God is telling you, do not despise those small beginnings, because He Himself find joy. God is rejoicing in your small beginning. He loves to see the work begin. So it's not even that he loves to see the work finish, which I'm sure he does, but he's letting you know the fact that you started makes his heart rejoice. So I hope that kind of gives you a little bit more encouragement. The fact that you have beginning and the fact that you have started the call that you were given, that makes God's heart rejoice. And once you start, he will give you the tools and prepare you for the actual result that you will get, which is something I want to discuss a little bit more, right? Because oftentimes they say, wisdom is proven by its results. And I also find myself doing this where I'm just like so focused on like, okay, I need to see these numbers. I need to see the results of this. But one of the things that God has been showing me throughout these past couple months, like 6, 7 months is the work that's being done in me while doing this new venture, and not so much to focus just solely on the result, like how many people are listening, how many, all of those things that we tend to want to look at and we should look at, right? But he has shown me that the work that he has been doing within me while I am doing this work, while I am learning and starting this new project, through the starting point of this project. So many things I've learned, and some of it I will touch on a little bit further. But the first thing is, comparison is the thief of joy. We've heard that before, but it truly is like, you cannot compare yourself to what someone else is doing, because even if you are in the same field, even if you are doing what you think is the same thing, one, understand that on a business perspective, most likely you are speaking to a different audience. So keep that in mind. And while it is hard to just be like, okay, like this person, we're in the same field, I'm doing this, they're doing this, and they getting results, and I'm not. Maybe I'm not doing something right, or maybe I should quit. You know what I mean? Don't, because a lot of times you don't know what that person is doing. What you're seeing may not be the full picture. So don't get discouraged by seeing what people are, what people seems to be getting, the result that they seem to be getting, and you feeling like, okay, this is not working. I remember there was I want to say like 2 or 3 years ago, regarding people on Instagram, right? Everybody wanted to increase their followers, and all of those things, and come to find out, people were purchasing followers to make it seem like they have um a bigger following, if that makes sense, in order for them to present to companies, for the companies to sponsor them to do whatever. But the thing is, it's like, if you are trying to grow your audience organically, you may look at them and be like, oh man, like they have 1 million followers, and I've pretty much been doing the same thing, and I'm not getting those same results. Not understanding and knowing, like realizing that these people are purchasing followers, so those people are not authentic, right? So when it comes time to calling for an action, let's say you're like, hey, I'm launching this product or this whatever, and you're maybe 300 people, you have people who actually support you, real people who actually support you and purchase your product and support you in that way. Well, that person has 1 million fake followers, right? So therefore get the they don't have that result. I hope that makes sense. So do not just look at what people are doing and feel compelled, or to try to do more or figure out what they're doing to get the result, because what you're seeing may not be true. What you're seeing may be, the deep fake, if you will. So do not be discouraged. Do not just sit there and ponder and look at what other people are doing and feel like somehow you're not measuring up. You should be getting XYZ result by a certain time. And also understand that, not like, your journey is going to be different, obviously, but also like the way you get your results, a lot of times, especially as Christians, we need to understand what the work is. When God said he loved the small beginnings, right? What is the work that's being done in the small beginnings? I will take myself for an example. One of the things I struggled with is consistency, right? For like 5 years, 5 years, I felt like God was telling me, if you are consistent, you will be successful. If you are consistent, you will get everything that you're asking me for. And though I heard it and I tried my best to rely on my own strength to be consistent, I was not. I just could not bring myself to be consistent. And for the past year, before I even started the podcast, God's been working on me to be consistent. And in doing the podcast, He's also still working on me to keep that consistency. So even though I may be like, okay, I'm not seeing what I would want to see as a result, and in the form of numbers and the podcast itself, the work that's being done in me and teaching me to be disciplined, teaching me to be consistent, teaching me, working on me on other aspects like pride, right? Perfectionism, all of those things are being worked within me, right? So while I may look at, okay, what I'm thinking the work is that God called me for, I'm like, is this really what you're calling me for, God? Like, did I misread the signs? Because this is not what I expected, right? But it's like, no, this is it. Through this, you are being reformed. To this, your mind is being renewed. The fact that in me coming up every week, doing the podcast, reading Bible verses, understanding them, letting God speak to me so I could speak to you guys. This is the work being done within me. So I want you to try to have a different perspective when you are doing your job, when you are doing your your work. How is God working in you? How is God working in you and getting you to become a better version of yourself, not just in the sense of, hey, I'm getting money, I'm getting bookings, I'm getting XYZ, but look at other aspect. Is Are you now more generous because of the work that you're doing? Are you now more patient because of the work that you're doing? Are you a better listener because of the work that you are doing? So don't just look at the result on the way that most men would look at it, right? But look at it and the fact of how are you changing for the better overall, and how is this affecting you, um as a person, as a mother, as a father, as a business person, as a friend? How is the work that you are doing changing you for the better, even though you may not be able to see the what we would call, you know, the financial result, if you will. Okay, so that's the first thing. So just be encouraged. Don't try to compare yourself, because a lot of times it's more smoking mirrors than what you would think. The second thing I would encourage you to do is focus, right? Focus on you, focus on your calling. We already kind of talked about it, not to be, not to compare yourself to others. And one of the ways to do that is just to focus on your work, focus on your calling, what it is that you need to do to get the result that you want, right? But also, how are you trying to be different? And not different in that, hey, I want to be, and comparing yourself, hey, I'm going to try to do something different, but also focus on, like, what is it that brings you joy? What is it that called you to this ministry, right? Because I say your business is a ministry, because so too many times people forget that the work that you are called to, right, in your secular, quote unquote, secular job, is for the glory of God. It is still for the glory of God, even if you work in, quote unquote, corporate America, secular world, or you have a different business venture. You are still called to represent God. wherever you are. So focus on that. Focus on, hey, I may be an attorney, and my job is to deal with, I don't know, contracts or whatever. So how, within that, how can you show the love of God? How can you still message to people the love of God, right? How can you still share the kingdom message? Focus on the bigger picture, right? Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, remember that the bigger picture is not just, hey, I need to just hit these numbers, make this money, and pay my bills and all of that. Remember that the bigger picture at the end of it all is to tell the world about the gospel, right? The good news of the kingdom of God. That's what we are here for. And sometimes when I do feel discouraged, and when I um feel like this is too much, yeah, right, because I'm just so focused on XYZ, like I should be here by now and this and that. I often I'm reminded, and I feel like it's the Holy Spirit reminding me, hey, looking at the bigger picture, you are right on track, right? You are right on track. You may be feeling like, hey, um, I my goal was to make 10,000 this month, and I've only made 3,000 and whatever. But you've also spoken or encouraged someone who needed the encouragement. You've also um, testified to somebody who now is making a change in their life. Those are the things that you may not be accounting as part of the your overall results, but that's the bigger thing, right? So just keep your focus on what the bigger um call is for, what the bigger message is, which is to do the things that you are truly called to do, which is using your business as um a way to spread the gospel of God. Okay. Um I I saw this quote by, I guess it's called, I'll read the quote. It says, productivity is never an accident. It is always the result of a commitment to excellence, intelligent planning, and focused effort. So it kind of says it all. I don't need to like expand on it more, right? But are you committed to excellence, right? There was this discussion that I was having. I think I'm gonna have to discuss it in a different podcast in relation to quote unquote black excellence. But that's a different conversation for another day. But commitment to excellence is, what are you um what do you define as excellence, right? what what is the standard that you are setting for yourself? What is it that at the end of the day, you know what, this is where I need to be at. This is the level that I need to present. So if on a scale of 10 your excellence is at a 6, then you need to always show up as a 6. Now you could say that it may be hard, like some today you had a bad day, and you can always show up as a 4, right? When your excellence level is at a 6. Well, you know what? You better show up as a 4, because that's the best you can do for that day. That's what I look at it as. And to not beat ourselves up when sometimes life happens and we can't be the best version of ourselves in that day. But the goal is to always strive to show up and be excellent. So your excellence doesn't have to be posh like your next door neighbor or your coworker or your counterpart, right? You just have to know that, did I show up today? Did I do the best that I could? And if the best that I could, especially as a mom, sometimes, like I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I want to be the all powerful, got it together, hero mom. And uh, some days I'm like on 10, other days I'm like on a 3, you know? And the days I'm on a 3, that's the best I can do is the 3. I'm going to do the best I can do out of 3, So does that mean I beat myself up because I couldn't be a 9? Sometimes, yes, I do. But I also have to remind myself I am human. Unfortunately, I'm not God, you know. Thankfully, I'm not God, right? And I can only do the best that I can, but even at my 3, I'm not going to use the fact that I'm not feeling my best to just not show up the best that I can at the level that I can at that moment, if that makes sense. So just try to commit to excellence at always, is what I'm saying. Always commit to being excellence, even though your excellence may not be where you are. It's kind of like um, working out, right? Let's say like today you went to the gym and you crushed it. Like you just did your thing, right? You showed up, you crushed all of your matrix for that day at the gym. Great. But the next day you didn't get enough sleep for whatever reason, and you show up to the gym and you did 60% of your matrix for that day. Well, you know what? That was your excellence for the day. You were at a 60% capacity and you reached that 60% capacity and you showed up. Versus, you know what? I didn't get enough sleep. I'm not feeling well. So I'm just going to call it a day and not even go to the gym. Right. So that's what you have to think about and being committed to excellence. Show up, do what you have to do. The next thing that the quote says is intelligent planning. We kind of talked about that last week, I believe, or the week before, about planning. And this is especially when it comes to sales, and because I'm a sales consultant, I see this a lot. There is no plan in place for so many like new businesses, um or even not so new businesses. They You have a marketing plan, you have sometimes they have a marketing plan, sometimes they don't have a marketing plan, sometimes they have um a budget, sometimes they don't have a budget. Sales is rarely on the radar for planning, right? So the thing is, like, you have to plan for the things that you want to accomplish. They will not just happen by happenstance. If you want to be excellent in your field, you have to plan to be excellent in your field. If you want to be an excellent caretaker, you have to show up and plan to be an excellent caretaker. You want to be an excellent construction manager, whatever it is, whatever field that you're in order for you to be excellent at that, you have to plan for it. It will not just happen. If you have a goal, you have to plan for it. So in those moments that you feel um down and out and you're like, hey, I'm not seeing the numbers, you feel discouraged and all of those things, stick to your plan. Are you are you um committed to the plan? Did you put the plan in place? Because it's one thing to say, okay, I have a plan, but then if you don't follow the plan through, you can't really complain that you're not getting the results, right? We kind of touched on that on another podcast, but it's true. If you're like, hey, I need to, that in order for you to close 5 clients, you need to speak to 30 prospects. Then are you talking to 30 prospects? If you're not, then you can't really complain that you're not getting the result, if that makes sense. So I hope um, you hear my heart when I'm saying this. Like, intelligent planning is very, very important. You have to, if you don't make a plan, you plan to fail, right? And then it's lastly it says, and focused effort. Like, there are so many areas that pull at our attention in a day, um, let alone a month, 90 days in a year. So, one of the things that me and my trainer talked about is making a plan with being focused on one thing at a time. For some of us who like to multitask, that can be hard because you feel like, okay, I need to do more stuff, right? If I'm the more productive I am, the more things I'm doing, the more efficient I am. But sometimes that's not the case, because what tends to happen is you try to do too many things, and you become a jack of all trade and a master of none, and you get no result because you're not focused on a task and saying, okay, this week what I need to do is just this. I need to do 3 things on my task for this week. Now you may have a month goal and then a 90-day goal to get to your year goal. So, what is it that you need to do this week that will get you closer to that month goal? And what is it that you need to accomplish this month to get you to the 90-day goal? And what do you need to make sure you accomplish within that 90 goal that will get you closer to the yearly goal? So, you need to have a focused effort saying that, hey, I'm going to focus on making sure this week I'm just going to get focused on prospecting. And then next week I'm going to focus on making building networking and building those things, right? So you have to focus on your effort. You have to focus on your planning. You have to focus on committing to your excellence. All of those things you have to make sure you know stay to and focus on, pretty much. So don't get discouraged. Just make sure that's something that you get through and focus on, right? Don't give up. The last thing is, like we kind of touched on, is knowing your call. Again, God called you to do the work that you are doing. And if you feel like maybe you've misheard, because like for me, I know a lot of times that's where I was. I was like, okay, I'm not getting what I think I should be getting. So therefore, maybe that's not what God wanted me to do. Right? This is not what I thought. And I think of King David, um, when sometimes I get those urges to be like, you know what? I tried. I showed up, God. I tried. It's not working. I'm ready to go. And I think of the fact that it took, don't quote me on this, but from what I'm understanding, it took 2 or more decades for David, from the time he was anointed with the oil, Samuel anointed him with the oil to become king, right? And literally he gets anointed. Um, and then, like, within a few months or so, he gets to go to the palace, and you're thinking like, oh yeah, that's how I get in, right? He's probably thinking like, hey, this is my way through. I killed Goliath. The King Saul lets me give me his daughter. So I'm in the palace, you know what I mean? Like, I'm right there. I'm about to be king. And it took another two plus decades before he got to be king. And thinking about that, it's like, there's how much stuff did he had to work through out of him? How much testing did he have to go through before God was like, okay, now you're ready to be the king. Now you're ready um to be what I called you to do. Even though I said, yes, you will be king, you still had to get some things worked out of you and worked through you in order for you to become king. And he was tested so many times, right? And it still boggles my mind at times when I think of the story of David, and the fact that Saul wanted to kill him, and he had multiple opportunities to kill him first and did not, right? And I feel like, one, obviously we know now that was like we know it was a test, But for me, I would have been like, hey, you know what? Like his friend said, God has delivered him in my hand. I'm gonna take my shot, right? But he knew what God called him for, and he knew that was not how God wanted him to go about what he needed to do. So, in thinking of those things, in thinking of King David and what he had to go through, just don't be discouraged. You have everything that you need. Sorry about that. My recording had stopped, but you have everything that you need to get to where you need to be. So know that in the end, God is with you, God is for you, and He loves, like I said, do not despise small beginning, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin. He rejoices to just see the work begin. So stay encouraged and let God do the work that He needs to do through you in order for you to become a better person, so that when you do get the kingdom, that you be more like David and not like Saul, right? So you can receive the kingdom and keep the kingdom and not lose it. So in the same way, um, just know that God called you for this. You are called for this. Do not be discouraged. Keep going. And at the end of the day, everything will work out the way it's supposed to as you trust God and do everything that you need to do. So I hope you did find some encouragement through this podcast this morning. That was the intent of it, is to encourage you as we wrap up the first quarter. If you're not seeing what you thought you should be seeing, what the result you thought you should be getting, just don't be discouraged. God got you, and I will be praying for each and every one of you guys. um, I love you guys. God loves you. He has you in his hand. He tells you that if he will instruct you and teach you in the way that you should go, he will counsel you. That in itself is comforting, to know that he has your back and he is guiding you every step of the way. So just leave it up to him. Pray and ask him for his encouragement. And I hope this podcast was encouraging, because I know I needed the encouragement too, to not give up, to not lose, sight of the bigger picture. So I hope you guys have a blessed end of the week, and I will talk to you guys next week.